All right, well, let's get going here.
Alrighty.
My name's Andy, and this is my brother Jared.
And we don't have another brother, Jared. Some of
Oh,
you will get that reference and some of you will not.
yeah, that's kind of a boomer joke, isn't it?
Boomer, I don't know. I'm Gen X and I remember that show and I love that show.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'd forgotten all about that show until you said that joke. What show are we talking about, Jared?
Oh, now the title escapes me. But it was Daryl and my other brother, Daryl.
Is that the Bob Newhart show?
The Bob Newhart show. Thank you, Bob Newhart.
Yeah, that's a very boomer thing. But being Gen X, there's some overlap there because they were our parents. And when you're a kid, the things that your parents find funny, you also find funny. So
Absolutely.
I think we have boomer traits sometimes that come out. And this is what we're talking about today are generations and generational differences and stuff.
And stuff. We're
Yeah.
both Gen X, right? If you go by the tried and true definition,
Yeah.
we're both Gen X.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh we have we've got this infographic from Purdue Global. Participants can now see my screen. Do you see just the window or do you see the whole?
I see your whole desktop.
Okay. Uh, uh, Stop share.
So if you have it open in a
I have it open in a window. I
so
can
then
I
when
can
you hit
make
share, you get to choose which window.
okay, share screen. Oh, there we go. Share. Now do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, we're in business. I feel a little bit like a boomer when I'm
When we're
using
dealing with technology.
yeah, but I promise I'm not that old. Okay. So this is from Purdue Global, online education from Purdue University, I assume. Um, and they have this little infographic on generational differences in the workplace. But I think that it has wider application than just the workplace.
Of course.
Maybe, or maybe it doesn't have any application at all because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, humor me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you and I are Gen Xers, and according to this little infographic, Generation X are born between 1965 and 1980. So we meet the criteria.
We do. We were
Yep.
born right in there, right in the middle of it.
Yep.
Well, you were towards the latter end of it, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I
you're
think I'm
kind of in
right
the
there,
middle of
smack
it,
dab in the middle.
and I was towards the you know the latter end of it, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
And we do have a brother who's like at the very end of it.
Very end, like
Very,
the
very
last month,
the
even.
last month of 1980.
Yeah,
And in some ways he's well, he still can be considered Gen X. And I think if you go through the definitions of these generations, I think he does fit more Gen X than everybody.
right.
But then again, you know, I know people born as Gen X that behave like they're millennials.
Yeah, I can probably think of people from our grandparents' generation. They call that traditionalists who behave like the millennial stereotypes.
That's crazy.
Well, can't you? Can't you think of some examples?
Somebody from the traditionalist behaving like
Behaving like
or millennial,
I don't look right off the bat,
Betty White,
we're
Betty
already
White for sure.
crapping on millennials. Like right after the bat. We're already insinuating that there's something wrong with them. And what I'd like to do is just go through each of these and you'll see that, there's pros and cons to being in these groups. And the other thing is they're fluid, right? Like it's kind of silly to think that, oh, I was born between the years of 1925
Right.
and 1944 or 45. Therefore, I am dependable and straightforward and tactful and loyal. Like,
Although I think that's a pretty good definition for traditionalists.
yeah,
I mean, if you look at the traditionalists, they were our grandparents
yes,
and they worked in jobs for 20, 30, 40 years. They stayed there. They were loyal to their employer. They were loyal to their family. They were loyal to their Lions Club. They were loyal to their church. They
they
didn't move
were
around a whole lot. They stayed in one geographical location, right?
right.
I think that's a pretty good generalization
It
of that
is. It
generation.
does ring true. I don't
It
argue
does.
that. Okay, so there's very few of those left in the workforce, though. People born before 1945.
Correct.
I
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
pretty much retired,
Um,
and it's the boomers that control everything,
these some of these people sit on boards, you know,
right?
but they don't. Once in a while they have to sign something, but I don't know. We're probably offending some traditionalists right now.
Probably. Well, they are the greatest generation, and we have to give them that. They are the generation who, they were the ones who went to war. They're the
Well, they
ones
went
who
through the Great Depression and
went
World
through
War
the Great
II,
Depression, right?
and according to this, radio and movies.
Yes.
They were shaped by these things, shaped by the Great Depression, World War II, and radio and movies. They're shaped by those radio programs. They never miss them. They'd gather around the radio and listen to their favorite program.
Program
Yes.
on Sunday evening,
Yes, on a Sunday, sometimes on a Tuesday.
but never on Wednesday.
No, that was when they went to their bridge club. It was bridge club night.
Later on in life, yes.
Yes.
But let's
Yeah.
talk about the baby boomers. And the
Okay.
boomers, they often are defined as the generation that has ruined the country.
Defined
But
by
we have to
who?
give them
By
some
who?
credit,
Who would
right?
say such a thing?
Optimistic, competitive, workaholic, team oriented. Do you think that's a pretty good summation,
Opt
generalization of what baby boomers are?
This is hard because this is my parents' generation, and for some reason it's cool to sit there and think about your childhood and over analyze it. And so I don't know that I have an objective opinion about baby boomers because that's my parents,
Right.
and I've probably done a lot of overthinking in this regard about my parents and my upbringing, stuff like that. Optimistic?
Eh, I think that's a vast generalization that I don't know. The baby boomers that I know, not too optimistic.
Well, they'll I think they're kind of it's normal for them to feign optimism.
Oh, okay.
Like it's kind of taboo for them to be negative, even though we know they can be.
Hmm.
But that
Okay.
would be a taboo to be a pessimist, to naysay things, especially in the workplace. Like you want to look like you have a good attitude. If you're a baby boomer, even if you don't want to be there, you're gonna put on the face like you want to be there.
Because you're a workaholic, right?
Yes.
I
Uh
yeah,
I,
workaholic. I have a hard time putting that on that generation just because I know workaholics of all generations. I mean, if
are
you look
you
at the greatest generation, the previous generation we just discussed,
yeah.
I think there's a lot of guys who are totally dedicated to what they did. Um,
Uh
and whether it be on the farm, whether it be in the corporate boardroom, workaholic, I don't know if that is necessarily a huge trait of baby boomers. I think that spans the generations.
Well, yeah, when you're talking about the previous generation, the traditionalists, okay. I'm in an elders quorum presidency, okay? And until very recently, there was a guy in there who was about, I don't know, 80 something. And that guy um was probably a workaholic. He showed traits of being a workaholic. Like his wife was moved into a facility and stuff. It was a very traumatic thing for him. He was still showing up to meetings and he was still taking care of his stuff. No excuses whatsoever. Like he's always there with a suit on, ready to go.
Yeah,
That
because he's
describes it.
optimistic and competitive.
Yeah, yeah, and like he never. you wouldn't hear him complaining about it or anything like that. You could see it in his face that he was tired and that life was getting him down, but he was still there and he was saying and doing all the right things, you
So how
know?
did the baby boomers, who are also the children of the 60s,
Yeah.
they were the flower power people, right? How did they become also the competitive workaholic people in the workplace? That's the thing that baffles me, right? Is and they control to this day, they still control a lot of the corporate boardrooms across the country, right? And if not the corporate boardrooms, they still control the managerial roles in established companies.
Well, I think they've just stuck around forever because they need the money.
Yeah. Wow. There's a there's a sad truth right there, right?
Yeah. They they're I don't know the exact stats, but as far as as far as I know, is the way I understand it is they haven't exactly been great with their money.
Mm.
Like,
Now, this is a generalization. Some have, obviously.
oh,
Some
obviously,
have made a lot of money, right?
and also they had to deal with like the value of their 401k tanking in 2008 or
Right.
whatever. You know,
Right.
they've had some adversity and stuff like that. But like they're the generation that started buying gigantic houses that they couldn't afford.
The McMansions of the world,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally they did that.
And then
Uh
it has moved on to Gen X, right? And we Gen X, yes, a lot of us live in those McMansions that our parents.
a lot of us do, but I think I saw people my age beginning to reject some of that stuff a little bit. Like, just I want to live off the grid, man.
Is that a symptom of where you live, or is that a generalization?
It's probably a generalization.
Hmm. I wouldn't
I
mind living off the grid if I could still have my internet.
Dude, I've had so many conversations with people my age about living off the grid. The hypothetical situation, just go and find some land in Alaska and building a shelter and just not having a phone. And like, that's a Gen Xers, we are independent.
That is true.
Like, baby boomers are like, it says they're team oriented, right? Um, they're team oriented, whereas Gen X are a little more independent. And let me say something about this team oriented thing. Okay. With baby boomers, they're motivated by company loyalty and teamwork and duty. Okay.
Yep.
Uh, all right. There's some obvious good things about that, right? Loyalty, teamwork, duty. There's a downside to that too. And that is like the company's totally screwing you over. It's not in your best interest to still be working there, but you're still there and you're putting in extra hours and you're a team player and you're doing your duty and you're not getting paid anything extra for it, going above and beyond. They will do that all day long and they'll expect it of you. And then if you just us, more skeptical, independent Gen Xers will be like, "Oh, you want me to work extra? Are you going to pay me extra?" Because that doesn't work for
No.
me. Like, I might do it this one time, but if this becomes a habit like that, no, you're taking advantage of me and we're going to find another job. Whereas the boomers will just stick with it. Oh, yeah, we all got to work extra.
Yeah,
Teamwork.
you betcha. Right?
Yeah. And Gen X were just like, what? I mean,
For what?
what for? Like, this is when I get a job, it's a contract, right? I agreed to do X, you agreed to pay me Y. If you expect me to do X plus 5, I'm going to need Y plus 5 in compensation. Like, is that really unreasonable? Does that make me an entitled little brat because I feel like I should be paid for what I do and that we should stick to the terms of the original contract?
No, because we're more flexible. I can't tell you how many times my position, my job, and granted, I've been there for 20 plus years. So I'm kind of that uh strange worker that has been in the same company for decades. But within that company, I've had multiple roles.
Mm-hmm.
And when times change, when demand changes within the industry, I pivot. And I've always considered myself really that independent type of person who, if that's what I want to do, if it's a company I want to work for, if it's something that I want to stay involved in, I'm flexible enough to make that work. But I think Gen X, we're more selfish. We're more kind of self-oriented than everybody else than the previous generations, probably because we didn't have to sacrifice much for anybody. The biggest sacrifice that we had was growing up was we were the first latchkey kids and we had to take care of ourselves while our moms and dads were all away at
Well,
work.
we were taught that you should take care of yourself because if you take care of yourself, that you're not a burden on somebody else.
That too.
And I like that. I don't think that that's a selfish thing to take care of yourself. I think that's actually a selfless thing to do because you're not expecting other people to take care of your crap. And this is something that I think we run into in the workplace as Gen Xers. It's like we have the ability to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes people younger than us, they they're a little bit more needy. They need more support. And I'm just like,
No, they need to do their job,
just do your job.
right? If everybody just
Yeah.
did their job the
Like
way they were supposed to do their
it
job, we wouldn't
that's
need extra
but that
programs
that
and
is the
support
kind of support that I
resources.
need. You can support me by
By
taking
doing
care
your
of your
job.
own crap.
I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, but we're stuck in this weird kind of middle ground where, you know, now Gen X is really starting to come into the top managerial and CEO roles and things like this, but we've had to wait for a long, long time to step into that.
Oh, see, that's the other thing is about, let me share my screen again here. Um, Baby boomers say that achievement comes after paying one's dues.
Yeah,
Okay, but here's the thing. When they started in the workforce, they worked for 10, 15 years, and then they're like, great, I paid my dues. And then they became the boss. And they've been the
right.
boss for like half a century. And then whenever we kind of say, hey, can I get a promotion or raise? And they're like, oh, you got to pay your dues,
Gotta
buddy.
pay your dues,
And,
buddy.
and they like, it's like they don't have a good concept of like time because um I'm 45 years old. I've been in the workforce for about 25 years or so.
Right.
I in my view, I have paid my dues, but I still have some boomer over me saying you got to pay your dues. It's like
Right.
yeah, imagine if someone said that to you when you were 45 years old.
Wouldn't go over very well, would it? Right?
Yeah.
No, because their parents were the ones who retired when they were 60, 65 years old, right? Um, and so now we see the generation above us, we see the boomers working until they're 65, 70. You can't take Social Security really until you're 72.
Yeah.
And you got people working beyond 72 because they didn't save enough in their working years, so they got to keep working.
Well, I
And
mean, to be fair,
now
they couldn't save enough because everything got so dang expensive. I think they
yeah,
could for a long time, up until probably the 2000s. You know, you could save a reasonable amount of money, and it would take you a relatively short amount of time to save up for a down payment on a home. And you could fit that in your budget from the get-go. You know, you could start investing early on and everything, but nowadays it's just like you can't even afford you're barely scraping by, and then you've got some boomer telling you that, oh, you should invest.
yeah, invest what?
Yeah, like I couldn't start investing until much later on because I was just barely keeping my head above water.
Right. Well,
um
which again leads to the next generation, the one below us. They're marrying later in life because they can't afford those expenses. Although we can talk about that. I think that's a fallacy, but whatever.
yeah, so millennial
Um, And
Yeah,
so they're putting off things because the cost, you know.
right. And millennials get a lot of crap from us, Gen Xers, and our parents. Let's talk about why they get a lot of crap, but also why I kind of feel for them.
Well,
I'm
I'll tell you
really
why they get a
empathetic.
lot of crap
Okay.
and why in some ways they deserve a lot of crap.
Okay.
Because here's Gen X. We've always taken care of ourselves because, hey, our parents were boomers. They were out working, right? They were workaholics. And
Yeah.
so we took care of ourselves,
Yeah, we did.
right? And we're doing okay. Then millennials come around, 9/11 happens, school
Well,
shootings, like you
okay.
said here, right?
Before
And
9/11,
so
though, before
there are
9,
kids, right? There are younger siblings, there are kids in the later years. And so now all the attention's it's for the children. Everything is for the children. And so you've got all this focus on the millennials and Gen Z
mm-hmm.
because they're the rising generations that are going to pull us out of this mess that we're in. And you got the older boomers that, they're off kind of controlling the world and doing their own thing. And literally, we are the forgotten generation. I can't tell you how many times you go into, you see these news stories about uh, all the generations and what's going on with these generations, and they always skip right over Gen X.
They do. They do because we're fine.
We're fine.
We're the middle child.
We're the middle. We're the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm the
We're
middle
the ones
child.
who just get stuff done, right?
We are because that's what was expected of us, and we got very good at it. Like we just, oh, mom and dad are at work. I'll cook dinner.
But every once in a
I'll
while,
watch
wouldn't it
my
be
younger.
nice?
You
Every
know,
once in a while, wouldn't it be nice to have that recognition? Wouldn't it be nice to have the support program for Gen X that you've created for millennials and Gen Z?
maybe, but I think a lot of us would just feel uncomfortable with it because we're
Well,
used to taking care of ourselves. And then
well, we don't want it.
if
Yeah.
someone comes along and they're like, do you want to take a mental health day? Like
Like why?
I've had that situation before where they're like, hey, anyone who needs to just take the day off because I know the events of today were a little traumatic, and I'm just like, "Mm,
Hmm,
okay,
why?
thanks.
Now, I've taken mental
I
health days, but I haven't waited for anybody to give me permission to take a mental health
Yeah,
day.
you're just like, I'm not working today because I got some
Yeah,
crap
I'm
to
not
take
working
care of.
today.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
take care of myself for a second. Yeah, but
exactly.
you didn't need permission to do it. And
Exactly.
millennials, I think they're the Barney generation. Remember Barney?
Barney, the
I
purple
love you,
dinosaur.
you love me. The purple dinosaur.
Uh-huh.
That sticks out in my mind of how those kids were shaped.
Yeah.
The Barney kind of attitude. They're encouraged to express their feelings, you know, and work through them. And maybe that's good, that's fine. But I find it hard to relate to because I just I mean, let's get at what this infographic says real quick, and we're probably running out of time. So I want to get through it. It says they were shaped by Columbine and 9/11 and the internet. Were they shaped by Columbine?
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
were they shaped by what was on TV? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, Columbine was a horrible thing, and on school shootings since are horrible things, and yeah, I can see. But were they shaped by it? I don't know that they were shaped by it. And by 9/11, yeah, that was a big thing. And the internet, I don't know that they were shaped by the internet any more than I was shaped by the internet.
Yeah.
And because I'm a younger Gen Xer,
Younger Gen
so
X.
yeah, so there's probably some overlap there. Um, Okay, but
Right.
but some of the reasons why I kind of sympathize with them. Okay, we were going to talk about that. Um, they've had it rough. They came of age during this big economic crisis. There's still millennials who are will never be able to afford a home.
Yeah.
Um, if things keep going the way they are, you know. They plus they always get crapped on for just
Being
being
millennials.
being the way that they were raised. Okay.
Yeah.
um they were raised.
Helicopter parenting, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you're referring to, the helicopter parenting or Tiger Woman, right?
Right. But under worldview, it says seeking challenge, growth, and development. Okay, yeah, they want growth and development. And then this is the one that gets me, this next part. A fun work life and work life balance. Now, work life balance, I agree with. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't believe that we're slaves and that we just need to work all the time. And work life balance sounds totally legitimate. But when it says a fun work life,
yeah.
you want it to be fun?
It's it's not the employer's job to entertain you while you're at work.
Yeah, it's work.
It's work. That's why they call it work.
It
Now just go
doesn't.
do your work, and then when you're finished with your work, you can go have fun. But don't
Yeah,
put that on the employer to create
yeah.
this fun environment, right? I mean,
You want
our
to be
business too, our
entertained.
company too, we created a break room with foosball and drinks and
Dude,
coffee makers
I
and
think that
whatnot.
is the when are you going to
Silliest thing
use
ever.
that? When are you going to use that? Because as soon as the millennial goes and uses the break room with the foosball table, the boomer boss sees it and they're like, "Oh, well, somebody has time to play foosball today. That's interesting."
I've seen it happen.
And they judge him for it. What'd you put it in the break room for if you didn't want me playing it?
Exactly. Right?
Mixed messages, which is another reason why I sympathize with the millennials. It's like you're telling me that I can have fun, but when I do have fun, you're guilt tripping me over it.
You're giving me the guilt trip. Yep. Because I'm not as loyal as you, right? Yeah,
Right.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So what
Okay.
about Gen Z?
Gen
So Gen
Z.
Z born,
This is my
really
kids.
they're young ones. And then, I've got kids who are like alpha, right? Well, Gen Z is kind of I think this
You've got
Gen Z,
kids all over the spectrum, don't you, Jared? You have so many kids.
right. Well, I mean, technically no. I mean, Gen Z, I think this is pretty wide spectrum. I think there are
When was your
subdivisions
first kid
within
born?
Gen Z. And
When
I
was
don't know if Gen Z goes all the way to 2020. I think that's kind of ridiculous, but
when was your first kid born?
1999,
Okay, so just outside of that gen. So they're a millennial.
technically.
Technically. And then when was your last kid born?
Uh,
Kids.
to Don't put me on the spot like this.
Oh, come on, just say it.
13 years ago,
When
whatever
was
that
that?
whatever that makes. I can't do math.
Okay, so you have some tail end of millennials and Gen Z. But would you lump them all in Gen Z?
I would
Like
not lump them all in Gen Z because I think there's a big difference between the older Gen Z and the younger Gen Z, which
oh,
I
okay.
think they're more called Gen Alpha,
Oh,
just
okay.
kind of coming after Gen Z. And
Right.
I think there is a huge difference because I think the youngest kids, and these are kids born within, I don't know, I'd probably put the cutoff date around 2017, well, 2000, maybe 2015, somewhere in that area.
Hmm.
I think they look at Gen Z, the older Gen Z, and I think they think they're crazy. I think
No,
uh
I see this between my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter.
right.
She points this stuff out. She's
And I
like,
think they're
"What?"
learning from the mistakes of the older Gen Z generation,
Right.
um, which is a good thing. So the pendulum, I think, is swinging the other way. That's not to say all of Gen Z is bad. I'm not saying that. It's just,
Hmm.
again, it's same thing with the millennials. They grew up
Right.
in a different world. They've never known life without the internet or cell phones or
Yeah.
anything like this, right? And so, I mean, you tell somebody in Gen Z, what it was like to even watch television as a Gen Xer back in the day. And it's like, what? Your dad made you get up and change the channel? What? How did you do that? You
Yeah.
got up and got the remote control? No, I actually went up and turned the dial on the black and white TV, and they're just blows their mind that that kind of stuff happens, right?
Oh,
So technology is a huge influencer on how
right.
they view the world, and no patience. It's like everything is instantaneous because of the internet.
Yeah.
You don't know? Nah, just Google it. Just watch
Right.
YouTube.
Well, I noticed there's a level of independence with the youngest of Gen Z, my youngest daughter,
Correct.
and that is not necessarily present with the older ones, and it's a lot like the independence that we had as Gen Xers.
Yeah, and that's why
It's
I
kind
think
of
the
promising.
pendulum is swinging the other way, right?
Yeah, right.
And I
They
think
have an independence, but it's kind of turned into, like I heard some teacher talking about, how it's kind of, they don't know how to, because this is a millennial, right?
Yeah.
The Barney generation millennial who's a teacher is all about cooperation, right?
Everybody get along.
And now these young kids that they're teaching are just like, I don't have to listen to you. They're
And that's a
that
different societal
they're
problem, though.
they're
I mean,
that
that's a different societal problem, a topic
but
for
the
another
thing
day,
is
right?
like
But
the thing is like part of me I'm part of me agrees with that kid
I totally get it. And I have a lot of respect for
because
them because they see the garbage that's going on in our schools today. And we won't
yes,
get into what I mean by
yeah,
that, but
yeah,
they see
like
the garbage going on in the schools today and they go, no, I'm not participating in
so
that.
I don't want to be part of your community, millennial.
Right?
Like I'm not, don't impose your values on me. I'm doing
Yep.
my own thing.
Yep.
And I kind of respect that.
I do.
But okay, one thing that was in here before we end, another let me share my screen again. There was a similarity between Gen Xers and Gen Z. If you notice that Gen X motivated by the first thing on there is diversity.
Okay.
Do you think we're motivated by diversity?
Not in the least.
Because it says the same thing for Gen Z, motivated by diversity. Who's motivated by diversity? I don't understand. Look, I have nothing against diversity. Diversity is fine, but it's neutral to me. It's a neutral thing.
It
I
is a
don't
neutral
see it as a
quality to me.
positive or a negative.
It also depends on what you mean by diversity, because if we're talking about diversity of thought,
Yeah,
I'm all for it, right?
right.
But diversity for diversity's sake is another topic altogether.
Yeah,
And
and I'm sure there's somebody who's going to be like, "Oh, these guys are, you know, um
this and that.
this
Yes.
and that. Call us names because the thing is like us Gen Xers, we really were raised on the idea of color blindness.
Yes.
And that angers some people, but I'm sorry. I will defend that all day. I think it's way better to be color blind than color obsessed.
100%. I agree with you.
So I don't understand the motivated by diversity thing.
Yeah.
Matt, now maybe there's some variation there because we're in our bubble or whatever. And so you and I think the same on that. But I don't, it's not, I don't see as a motivation. It's just a thing
It's just
that
a thing. Yeah.
that
There's no motivating
exists.
factor there for
And
me.
there's
From
no reason to be like afraid of diversity or resentful towards diversity. Like diversity's fine, but I don't see it as a motivator or as something that's necessarily positive.
yeah, it can go either way.
Yeah, it could go either way. It, right. I
But
knew
you have to also remember the institution to put this out. I mean, this is a university, right?
right. Right. And so they have to say that.
They have
Do
to
you
say diversity.
they have to say diversity because they're a university.
They get credit for DEI on that,
Right,
DEI points.
right.
There you go.
Gen Z self-identifies as digital device addicts. They value independence and individuality, like I was saying. They prefer to work with millennial managers, innovative coworkers, and new tech. I'm skeptical that they prefer to work with millennial managers. I think the older ones probably do. But like
Yeah.
I said, I think there's something emerging here with the kids, with the teachers, that there's starting to be a backlash against this um the way this millennial thing about I saw this when I went back to college briefly, and I was a lot older than the kids that were there, and these were millennials, and they had this scary level of conformity to the institution that was just foreign to me. No, you're supposed to do this.
Oh,
You're just
why?
like I'm trying to think of a concrete example, but like they were scared to say things that deviated from like the professor's kind of
Well,
point of view.
there's one thing to pass the test, and it's another thing to actually internalize the teaching, right?
Well, and it wasn't just that, like even when the professor wasn't present, they kind of had this attitude like, oh, you can't do that. I'm,
That's
I'm like,
interesting.
I'm like, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. And I had that attitude from the very first day of college at 18 years old that I could do whatever I wanted.
Well, quite frankly, you've had that attitude since you were like 3. So
That's because I can. I can do
that's
whatever I
because you
want.
can. And you were born as a Gen Xer. So there you go. But
Okay. Any final thoughts before we
no, I
wrap
think
this up?
I mean, obviously you have to break out these generations in generalities. And it's not to say that, you know, there's no blurring of the lines and some people fit at different pockets, and I think that's fine. But I do think times are turning too. And I think that the way that millennials and Gen Z have gone and now Gen Alpha, I think there's a swing back the other way. And I think you're going to see more and more people behave like Gen X, baby boomers. And I don't know, maybe we get as far as the greatest generation. I don't know. I hope we don't have any world events that force us to be put in the same situations our grandparents were put into.
I hope we do. We
I
could
do,
use
and
it.
I
These kids could use a good world war.
oh boy,
Kidding. I'm
there's the
kidding.
Gen X warmonger right there. Here
No,
we go.
yeah. No, I just no. War is stupid. We should avoid it. But uh maybe not a war, but I mean I think they are the fact that you just can't afford a house in most places.
Yeah,
You're not going to be able to do it. You,
I think this is a turning point in history, and I think we're starting to see culture change in the United States to where everybody sees this as an untenable situation. We can't continue going down this road.
right.
And I think values are going to change. And I think society will change as a result of it. There's no way we can put up with politics the way that it is, with um, media the way it is, with
No.
inflation and economics the
No,
way
it's
it
gotten
just
to the
it
point
can't work this
it's
way.
gotten to the point that the millennials make sense and I have empathy for them. That's how bad it's
That's how
gotten.
bad it is.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Yeah, well that's a good interesting conversation and I look forward to more of them. So I think we'll end there and we'll talk to you soon.
good night, everybody.
Okay, bye.